Welcome back to the Shine Within podcast. Dorothy Cook is a leading expert in stress and anxiety reduction with over 33 years of experience as a stress anxiety reduction specialist, course creator, author, violinist. By the way, I've always wanted to play a violin, and ordained minister. Dorothy helps women transform their lives by teaching them how to manage stress through body talk and neurological techniques. Her innovative approach empowers clients to reduce anxiety in minutes, helping them reclaim their health and well being. Dorothy's work combines psychological, physiological, and neurological strategies, offering a holistic solution for stress relief. She is also a passionate Christ follower and artist. That is awesome. You had me at Christ follower. That's wonderful. Thank you so much for being on my podcast today. It's nice to meet you.
Oh, thank you. I'm looking forward to this.
Yes. Can you go ahead and start off by sharing some of your top client success stories, particularly those related to insomnia, dental phobia, seizures, and long-term anxiety issues?
Oh, you're starting off with a really good one. All right. So, 80 years of insomnia, the we resolved it within 1 hour. But you have to hear that not all insomnia can be done that quickly. But this one, because it was based on a childhood trigger or stress, it was a very dangerous childhood, and she didn't know if she'd wake up alive. So we just got the brain to deactivate and solve the problem for her. And she's been sleeping ever since. So that's about 8 months ago that I worked with that one. Dental phobia, again, 75 approximate years of whenever she went to the dentist, it would be over the top anxiety, like panic attacks, major, leaving, as her words, the nail marks in the chair when she left. That again was done by working with the brain, just I call it unhooking the brain, and it was done within one session. Then this one is really phenomenal. So a lady, her name is Hannah, actually. She's given me permission to talk about her story. She has had seizures since age 3, and sometimes more than one grand mal a day. So she stepped into my group program, which I run on a regular basis. And within uh, probably the first month, okay, she came into a 12-week course. It's now down to 8. But within the first month, she was now controlling her seizures. That meant she was not having them. The doctor, her specialist, confirmed that there was a 43% reduction. Now this story gets even better. Since that point, so that was a few months ago. Since that point, she is now down to 52% seizure reduction on her physical body. That means she has 52% less seizures. And in fact, she's, even though she had a short relapse, they're back under control again, and she's still reducing the impact on her body. And this is all done by working with the brain, or the limbic system, where there is an emotional impact, and you learn how to just unhook it. I don't use technical terms. And you can literally, your body will heal and repair itself. So yeah, we've got some amazing stories. Those are some of the top 3 ones. But it's just really exciting how people's health is turning around because they're sleeping, they're not stressing out, and they're not having seizure activity. In fact, the doctor is looking at maybe having me work with some of her other clients. So we're just starting to negotiate that right now.
That's amazing. I always love success stories and I always love to share them on my podcast because people can change. People can change. Now, you yourself had your own personal health crisis. Can you just go ahead and tell us about that experience and how it led you to discover the path of that limbic system, which you're just discussing in stress management?
That's right. So in my early 40s, I worked really, really hard in a high stress situation, and I ignored my stress levels. So it started off with me feeling tired, and then I'd come home from work and I'd crash until the next morning where I'd have to get up. And then I noticed that going into the grocery store, I was starting to get migraines if I was going down the aisles that had heavy scents to it, like the laundry and detergent. And then it got worse, and I was allergic to all the foods that I had been eating, like chicken and pepper and garlic. I had to get off of everything I was familiar with. So it was a real progression that I could now look back and see what was going on. And what was interesting is the doctors did not, uh, they were not able to say, this is why this is happening. They could verify that, yes, I could hardly sit in a chair, but they could not give me a diagnosis. That didn't happen for another 20 years when somebody handed me a book. Their granddaughter had been struggling with EMF issues, so electromagnetic frequency. She had to step away from high school in grade 10, I believe it was, and was unable to go back for a year and a half, but she eventually did. And this book, when I was reading it, I'm going, oh, this is my story. This is why the doctors could not define what was going on, because see, even though it was showing up as a physical issue, it was actually an issue with my brain going rogue. It was overactive. So think of a car engine that's running hot and it's just not shutting off. It's eventually it's going to do damage. And that's what was going on with my body. And that's what's going on with other people's bodies. When the doctors cannot diagnose, that could be one of the indicators that it's a brain issue. And when you know that it's a brain issue, then it's not that hard to disengage and reverse, what's going on in terms of the downhill slope.
Yes. And in your opinion, what are some of those psychological and physiological impacts of stress? And why do you think so many people actually overlook its effects on their overall health?
Well, again, a very good question. We live in a world of stress and we are so used to handling stress. It's like normal, which is really sad, but it's normal. And if people, well, especially my age, I'm in my 60s, I was taught to work hard, play later. I'm a farmer's daughter, okay? And I have a really good work ethic. So I know how to work hard, but I was forgetting the, play part afterwards and not staying in balance. So I knew, for me, I knew that there was stress, but I just pushed through my tiredness. And a lot of people push through their tiredness or they ignore or minimize it. Um, it's getting, I'm from Canada, and right now we have a medical crisis going on with a shortage of doctors all across the country and lineups, and it's getting harder and harder to get medical treatment. So people just push through and tough things out until they're at crisis stage. So, which is not good. And what I'm offering is the tools to stop crisis stage from happening, because my health crisis was totally avoidable, 100% avoidable. And a lot of people that I work with who are struggling to keep their job, or maybe they've had to step back from work because their health has, gotten so bad, I'm getting them back to work. But it takes a little bit more effort when your health is at a crisis stage, as opposed to going, hey, here's some stress, let's deal with it. That's one of the keys for the lady Hannah who has the seizures. So if you can imagine your fist being a big huge ball and all of this being mixed up emotions, all I got her to do was to separate them one at a time and go, oh, okay, now let's deal with this stressor, now let's deal with this one. That's one of the tools I taught her. So if we were to take each individual stress when it's small, not go, oh, that's just tiny, I can walk away from it. Well, if you have 10 tiny little stressors, you've got a major 10, okay? And it pushes you over. So it's just, I think a lot of it is what we've been taught is to ignore our stress, and we're used to stress. And then what people don't recognize is the EMFs, electromagnetic frequencies, and the cell phones, radiation, all that kind of stuff. That all increases stress. A simple little tool is, when you go to bed, do not put your cell phone by your head. Put it to the far end of the room or in another room and put it on airplane mode, because that will stress your body out.
Yes. Oh, absolutely. I need to start doing that. I didn't realize that devices that can actually do that. Now, how I managed my stress before, I was very stressed out, overwhelmed with everything. I had that hustle and grind mentality. I used alcohol. I tried to mask it, but it made everything worse, especially anxiety. It was not a good place. But I wanted to ask you if you can go ahead and I help the listeners identify their personal stress triggers and perhaps maybe understand their unique stress responses.
So, um, there can be relational stresses, there can be work stresses, there can be financial. Actually, finances is the number one stressor. Um, that people can just Google that. That's really stressing people out right now. And there's probably more of a global stressor going on, because if you listen to the news on a regular basis, that's pretty stressful in itself. If you're that kind of person, turn the TV off and walk away from it. I've actually stopped listening to the news years ago. I will catch some of it, through people talking, or if I'm on my phone and looking for something, I'll see a headline, but I often won't go into the headline. So a person will know that they're being impacted by stresses by their response to it. And so what might stress you out may not stress me out, or vice versa. And so when you feel the impact of the stress, and your body is the number one responder, your physical body, it's not the emotions. So for example, maybe you start biting your nails, or you start picking at your skin, or your leg starts to bop up and down, or your stomach starts to feel a little sour. Maybe you get a migraine, or I take my tension in my neck, so I know if I start rubbing my shoulders and going, oh, okay, it's time to loosen them up, and what's my stress levels? All right. So as people listen to their physical signals, and that's one of the things I teach in my course, is how to listen to your physical signals. Don't just ignore them, you know. Then what do you do with them? Well, you want to bring them down. So you recognize your physical stressors, then you look at what the trigger is, and then can I resolve the trigger? So maybe I've been in front of the computer too long and I'm slouched. I'm bad for that. All right. Well, I need to get up and go for a walk, or walk around the house, or go do something else, and just get a change. Shifting can help the brain, the stressors come down. And like you used the example of alcohol. So I have somebody that I'm working with right now that I've just said, let's just do an intervention. I'm not saying don't go to the bottle, but what I am asking is that before you use the bottle, to mask your feelings, press into your feelings, acknowledge them, and lo and behold, which is the normal typical response, is I don't need the alcohol anymore, because I faced them and my stress came down, and the need was gone. But people who are into addiction mode, they're running from stressors, from emotions, and if you just simply face them, being in an ocean and the wave washes over you, it's just a temporary, it hits you, it's over, and you can still stand. So that's how a lot of how I work with stressors, is helping people to understand the physical and the emotional triggers and how it impacts them.
Absolutely. And I'm so happy that you don't watch the news. I stopped watching the news a long, long time ago. Just recently, there was a fire just across the street from us, and I didn't even realize it until my mom said, "Didn't you hear on the news that there is a fire?" I'm like, "No." And literally, you would think I'd smell it or something, but unfortunately, some businesses got burned down. And so it was sad, but like I completely shut off the news, but the news will come to me somehow. Like my mom was able to give me the news that day. But I love what you're saying about changing your physiology. Like for me, sometimes I tend to go ahead and take a cold shower. Because I'm a massage therapist, we were just talking about knots and neck and pressure and everything. And I had some clients yesterday, and I'm like, I feel it all. And sometimes I take on some certain energies. Going into the shower, well, first off, dry brushing. Instead of to the heart, I will do it away from the body. So that way it's releasing. And then going in the shower and just hot, cold, just changing the physiology. And that helps so much. And I feel refreshed and much better. And I'm listening to some good frequency music too, like 432 hertz. I'm good to
Mhm.
go. I'm good to
Oh,
go.
yeah, like that's a really good one. I like those. That's
Yes.
awesome.
Yeah, so body talk is a key component to your work. Could you go ahead and explain what body talk is and how it plays a role in reducing stress and anxiety?
Well, body talk is really what I just talked about. It's recognizing
Oh,
what
is
your
it?
body says
Okay.
to
I
you.
thought it was something
Yeah,
different. Okay.
yeah, it's the same thing. It's just saying it a different way. I love
Okay.
the term body talk. Somatic. Some people might know the term somatic, somatic. That's the same thing. It's the physical body and working with it. And again, if you can't change what you don't recognize, so when you recognize it, then you have to just shift and do something different, depending on the overwhelm, the amount of overwhelm. So we have smaller, kind of minimal, moderate, or high. If it's a high level, you're going to have to do more than if it's just a low level. A low level, you can just stand up, sit down, pump the air a couple of times with your fist, and you're good to go. But if something major comes at you, it's going to take more. But here's the thing right now, if we can just do a little shift, is we're using this front part of our brain, the forehead. That's where our thinker, that's the smart brain. But when you go into the emotional trigger, you're no longer thinking straight. In fact, it's the reason why is because you've shifted to a different part of the brain. So if you think about going from the living room to the kitchen, all right, that's what the brain is like. So if my brain determines in the front part, all right, my forehead, my smart brain determines that I'm not safe, and that can be an internal or it can be an external. Internal might be some, feelings of shame. It might be feelings of rejection. Those are all triggers for people. Well, then it pops you into the limbic system, LIMBIC, the emotional part of your brain, and then you can no longer use words. Once you're in the kitchen, all right, you cannot use words. You have to use pictures, which is really interesting. So if you're saying, I'm safe, I'm not scared, and you're feeling it, your heart's pounding, the skin is sweating, and your breathing is shifted, those words will do nothing for you. You have to picture yourself safe. That's one of the key components when people are anxious, is they have to use pictures, not words, to help bring it down. But it unhooks it really fast. That's how I got the dental phobia to shift within one session. That's how I got within 1 hour the insomnia to shift, is we use pictures. And it's like a hamster on a wheel. The brain's been going round and round and round for decades. Well, they stepped off of it when they used pictures because they solved the problem in their imagination. It's
Yeah.
fascinating how this works.
It is. I
Sounds so
love it
simple,
all. I know we talked about some of them, but any other brain hacks or techniques our listeners can go ahead and apply quickly to reduce stress in their daily lives?
Yeah, there is. The easiest one is when they're stressed is to smile. Because when you smile, you're telling your brain, I'm okay. Everything's good. But if you're frowning, if you're, angry, your brain goes, oh, they're frowning, they're angry, we're not okay. And it keeps you going down that pathway. But if you simply smile, and it's going to feel fake and phony, it's actually going to help your brain get the message, well, I guess I'm not as bad off as I thought I was. Another little brain hack that I love is to use the term or the phrase what if, and you put it at the beginning of a sentence. So let's I was working with somebody last week and they got really upset, and in that moment out came, I'm a failure. And I got them to go, but what if you're not a failure? That changes the brain's pathway. See, saying I'm a failure slams the door shut and puts a lock on it. I'm a failure. It's a judgment. It's like optional. But if I say, but what if I'm not a failure? It keeps a question mark at the end and allows that door to stay open, even a crack, for other possibilities. And you can move away from the feelings that are going to take you down. And it's a slippery slope, and you go into depression or panic attacks or however a person handles it. So using a what if or but what if you want to put 3 words there, it works really well. Or the other word at the end of a sentence, you can put yet. Okay, I can't do this yet. I don't know what to do yet. Again, it's keeping the brain open to possibilities. And as long as you do that, you can keep your anxiety down. You can, hope can arise. And so just rephrasing, because your brain really will go where you tell it to go. So if you don't want to go down that slippery slope towards anxiety, depression, anger, you have to get your brain to think differently. And those are just some simple tools to do it.
I love that. I always say, yes, practice smiling. Practice smiling. Having a
Mm-hmm.
bad day, smile. Anyway, another thing is I love the visualization that you were talking about. It's true. It's like if you're saying an affirmation, I am worthy. If you just say it, it's not going to do anything. But if you close your eyes and visualize yourself being worthy and embodying it, and then feeling it, then things change.
Well, the feeling it is that's the real key to the visualization, because if I only do it one dimensional, brain goes, well, you haven't convinced me yet. But if I use all of my five senses, the smell, the taste, the touch, the hearing, and the sight, and I embellish this picture, it's just like I'm by the water and I can hear it, and my feet are in the feeling the cool movement, and I have this warm coffee in my hand, and I hear the chirping of the birds, and like now the brain is starting to get involved in my picture, and it will actually shift things for you. So that's the key. It's just like I look at the shine within. I love your sign behind your
Oh,
head. It's
thank
just like
you.
it's three-dimensional. It's not flat. And there's lots of different movement and colors. And when you can do that with the brain, then it will shift for you. So I really had to work at practicing using my imagination. It was like taking an elastic and trying to, a brand new one, trying to get it to move and
Yeah.
stretch. But now I can do these mini little pictures, like 5 seconds or less, and it actually will shift my brain. It doesn't take a long time. In fact, scientific studies with medical machines are showing that when you do shift your brain, it's permanent, and it's quick, like it's instant. So these
It's
tools
true.
sound really simple, but they work. We don't have to do the complex, and that's one of the reasons why I'm getting such amazing results. In fact, if I can just tell you another story, I
Yeah.
think this one will really bring it home. So I worked with this lady for a year, but she'd been bedridden for 11 years. 11. And the medical system failed to help get her out of bed permanently. So within a year, I got her up and out of bed, because I worked with the trauma and some other things. All right. And so she's flying across Canada, seeing her friends and family that she hadn't seen for 11 years. And she did that for about a year. And then there was a trigger, an emotional trigger. And all of a sudden, she was very quickly headed back to being bedridden again. Like it was scary what I was watching. But by then, I knew how to work with the brain. And we kept her out of being bedridden because we got the brain. See, the brain has pathways that it follows. That's how why people know how to brush their teeth, use a fork to feed themselves, tie a shoe, all those basic things. Well, there's pathways in our brain, and that's the same emotionally. And unless you change the pathway, you will travel back down it given certain circumstances. Your brain never forgets. Absolutely does not forget anything. You might, but it doesn't. So at the wrong moment, at the wrong time, when there's enough pressure on it, it will pop up and you'll go, where did that come from? Well, it's because it was buried deep within. All right. So she is now walking normal. This is 3 years later. She's walking normally, has never gone back to bed, no supports to walk. Like it's an amazing story. But the key was changing the pathway in her brain. And that is a critical element when you've had trauma, post-traumatic stress disorder, or you just got some really bad habits like anger or alcohol or, sugar addictions, whatever. You've got to get those pathways to change in order to really break the pattern.
I agree because when I became sober in September of 2017, there was well, at least I didn't see any alcohol recovery coach. I mean, I tried AA, didn't work for me. The 12 step didn't work for me. So I sought out a mindset coach. And that was a game changer for me, really, is just shifting my brain
Yeah.
and thinking differently and doing things differently and visualizing things differently. and making it a practice like an everyday practice. And that literally like transformed my life. And so I completely love what you're doing. Do you have any future projects or initiatives that are coming up for you or anything exciting for Dorothy?
I do. I run these groups, 8-week groups, four or five times a year. So if people would like to get up to really do a deep dive on that, that would be the best way to do it. But in the meantime, because the next one's only starting in January, I've got one running right now. I would love for them to just get on a free call with me. Let's have a chat, and let's see if you've got some triggers going on in the brain. Because if it's not, and there's somebody else that's better to work with you, I'll just move you on. Um, but I have written a book. I'm a international bestseller. It's out there. It's on Amazon if they put my name out there. It's Grow Your Authority. It's actually for business women, and it's saying work on the internals. Don't just try and do time management and all the externals, because it's really your identity that's going to hit home, and get the stress levels down, get you to be, the leader that that you want to be. So grow your authority on Amazon. I'm soon going to be doing an audiobook on that, but that's still in the works.
That's
So
amazing. Yes. And how can our listeners go ahead and connect with you?
sure. Right now, I have a website, dorothyjcook.com. I'm assuming you'll put that in the notes, but it's a DOROTHYJCOOK.com. That will be changing over to out of a website into a oh, I forget what it's called now. I'm just blanking out. But anyways, if people need to, they can just email me directly, and it's dorothyj@dorothyjcook.com. So yeah, I'll be getting my own little whatever it's called. Sorry about that.
Oh, it's
But for
okay.
now,
Yeah.
website's up for another month or so, and if that goes down, they can just use my name to get a hold of me. Yeah.
Beautiful. And any last words or thoughts you'd like to leave with us?
I would deal with your stress. Don't wait till it's big. Deal with the little guys, and you'll be much happier for it. And you
Yeah.
won't have to see people like me or mindset coaches like you saw.
That's right. Yeah. So be in contact with Dorothy, and I will have everything in the show notes for the listeners. But thank you so much for being on my show today. I really enjoyed our conversation.
Oh, thanks, Gina. I really appreciate it. I had fun.
Me too. And this is if you're not having fun, then you are not doing it right. So,
That's right.
all right. Thank you so much.